Hey, this is Mr. Cap, and today I wanted to give you a little tutorial on Bible 11 for juniors and go through some of the syllabus and lesson plans and curriculum and give you some of the tips and pointers that I've gleaned over the years, and hopefully it'll help us stay together as a cohesive unit in Bible 11. First thing I want to show you here is this email that I'm going to give you. I'm just going to kind of go through each thing. You're watching this Bible tutorial now, and I also want to go over my syllabus. I want to share that with you. Go over some of the lesson plans that I've got, and just kind of how I do it on the web pages. And then also, here's my chapel notes worksheet. Here's another tutorial down here on how to harvest a YouTube video, upload it, share it with your students. A lot of times when you go to YouTube, it gives you recommendations of videos that aren't VCS approved. So it's always best to harvest the video first, something 2-3 minute video that you want to share with them. Share it with them on your TV or your LCD projector, smartboard, and then it just kind of goes a whole lot better. Okay, so let's take a look first of all at Bible lesson plans. I kind of want to go to that page. So you go right here to where it says lesson plans, click on that link, and that'll take you to my lesson plans page. And so let's go there. Okay, so here's my lessons plans page for the first quarter. And what I've done is I've divided up each A day, B day into days. And there's about 19 A day, B days in the first quarter. So I've just labeled them. The very first one that we're going to have here is Wednesday. That's A day 1. The Thursday is the next day. It's a B day, so that's B day 1. And Friday's A day 2, and Monday's B day 2, and so on. And so if a student should happen to miss a class and say, Mr. Cap, what did we miss yesterday? I was gone. You know, we just say, hey, go to A day 3, click on the lesson, and this is what you missed. And it has everything in here that we kind of went over and that we've done. Let's go through some of these things and let's take a look at it. But I just divided it up this way, and then I'll update these links and this lesson, this A day lesson, B day lesson, after I've taught it. And then I'll save it then for next year when we come around to next year and we need A day, B day lesson plans. And Mr. Cap, what'd you do last year? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can kind of keep a chronological list of what was done, when it was done, how it worked, what should you do better. It kind of helps you a little bit. Let's take a look at the very first day here, and this is what I'm actually going to be doing the very first day. I don't have Bible until third hour, so we've already done our orientation, so it's going to be a full 80 minutes of 25 kids in my class. I've got to be ready. What I'll do is I'll click on this, and then they'll also do this in RenWeb. If they miss a day, this link right here will also be in RenWeb. Here is kind of what I want to show you. I teach Bible in A3, and so here are the lesson plans then for A3, and it's just a link. When parents and students go on this lesson plans page, they'll click on this link, and it'll open up into that first A day class. Now, I actually teach 2 sections of Bible, an A day section and a B day section. So I teach Bible every day. But what I teach for A day, I'm also going to teach in B day. Let's take a look at this very first lesson while we're here. So this is A day, B day. And so like what I said, whatever I teach in A day 1, I'm also going to teach and reciprocate that lesson also in B day 1. So first day of school, we've already done orientation. I like to put pictures on my lesson plans page of former students, former classes, that kind of a thing, if you want to put that kind of a thing on there. And you can actually do this in a Word document. You don't have to do this in a web page and have web hosting and all that. I do because I've done it for the last 30 years. But you could also do this in a day, B day document for Bible. And you can keep track of what you did that day and what worked and that kind of a thing. Let's look at the very second thing in the email, and that was my Bible syllabus. And I got it here. I'll be going over it with my A day, B day classes. And so let's take a look at it right here. Class for juniors in Bible Truths, Directions for Early Christians. I kind of subtitled that. that. And I also use another software program that the school has and has access to, and I can teach you how to do this. And it's a software program called Schoology. Schoology is great for the ability to keep your students organized, keep the lesson plans on there. Students can go to the Schoology software platform to access notes, quizzes, tests, study materials in much the same way that they would go to RenWeb and find out what they missed or something like that. If they didn't want to go to RenWeb, they go to Schoology. Plus, Schoology, you can also create quizzes, and they can do multiple choice, true, false type quizzes in there. Schoology corrects all of them, and then you just put the grades in RenWeb, and so it's really, really handy. Plus, they also, in multiple choice type questions, Schoology also randomizes the choices, so it helps the students not be able to cheat on different types of quizzes on there. If you have any more questions about Schoology, I can get with you on that. But all my students go to Schoology, they access it, that's where they find all their lessons and that kind of a thing. I go over some of the supplies that they're going to need, actually kind of the scope and sequence of the class, how the grades are broken down, a little bit of a Mr. Cap bio right here, have a great school year. You don't have to have parents sign this and bring this back to you. You can if you want to. You can give them your email address so that parents could do that. I just also added in here Bible expectations. You don't have to put this in here, but you can if you want to, and go over it that very first day of class if you want to, and have kids, kind of put down what's going to be expected in class expectations, that kind of a thing. So now we're back on day one. The very next thing that I might do after I've done that is I might go through what I call CAPS current connections. And what I've done is I've gone to YouTube. I've taken a little 3 or 4 minute video, an inspirational video, a Christian video that I think is really good. I don't do any 40-minute, 50-minute videos. Kids fall asleep. But I've found out that if you just take a little 3-minute video or 5-minute video and do that. So what they do is if you click right here where it says video, it actually has what I expect and what I want the students to do. We're actually going to break up into groups for discussion. They would watch the video in their group, and then I might assign, each group to do a different question, if I want to. And then they would watch the video, they would discuss it amongst themselves, come up with these answers, and then we would go back into kind of a main circle group or just a main thing, and each group would give their own answers to the questions and that kind of a thing. We try to find some historical significance, some earth-changing movement that might have happened, and as a result of this, that if this person just could have done this, then they would have changed the world, that kind of a thing. So that's kind of what we're after. Here's the actual video. Let you see just a minute of it. You can tell it's kind of a little Christian video, and it's just a video about a girl that was an addict, and she's going to change her life around. Somebody helped her and reached out to her with the love of God, that kind of a thing, and it changed everything. So we're not going to watch much more of that video, but that's CAPS current connections. That's how that works. Takes up about 20 minutes, 25 minutes of time in class. It's really good. Another thing that I do is group discussion, where I'll have a question, some real basic questions. Is there really a God? We would break up into groups. And what I might do is I might have each, and I actually have the answers right here. This is actually the answer to this question. And so I might break up into groups and have each group take a paragraph. First group 1 take that paragraph, group 2 take this paragraph, group 3, now you guys sum it all up and give me the essence of paragraph 3. And so then we'd come back in and discuss it. And that would be actually on the first day. So we do that. And I kind of do discussion questions almost every day. We've got 80 minutes in class. I'm going to do that for discussion questions. We can also have students write a little essay that very first day. I probably won't do that. First 2 things that I have, I'll have that. And then what are my expectations for Bible class, and what's the teacher's expectations, classmates, goals, essays, what do you want out of class? I might have them do that essay and then keep it in a little folder, pull it out the last day of class. Hey, this is what you expected. Did you achieve your goals? Did you achieve your expectations? I've done that before, and it's been pretty positive. So that's maybe day one. Also B1, do the same type of thing. Let's go to B2, and let's take a look at the very first lesson that I've got here. Let me go to day 2. I'm actually in the lesson plan, so I'm clicking on that one. Let's just see if this comes up. Sure. And so I've actually been teaching Bible for 34 years. And so I've got lots of lessons that I've collected and that kind of a thing. Here's one that we start out in Ephesians. We start in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 1 through 10 in Bible Truths. And there's a reason why they started in Ephesians, because it all talks a lot about salvation. And so Bob Jones' curriculum wants you to, start with salvation, then we'll go all the way to Revelation in the 4th quarter, and that's kind of what they do. And so I've just got some different lessons that I have. Here's my very first lesson in Bible Truths right here. And so let me just click on it for you. And this is kind of the way I teach a Bible Truths lessons. There's 58 lessons throughout the year in this Bible Truths curriculum. And so I've divided up to have about 15 lessons, 14 or 15 lessons each quarter. You got enough to go all the way through the year. If that's 14 or 15 per quarter, you've got, 8 weeks in the quarter. You're going to do 2 lessons per week or a lesson a day to do that, because there's about 18 days. So in the Bible Truths lessons, I only teach 1 lesson per day. Last year I did 2 per week. Since we're only meeting twice a week in B days or 3 days and A days, it kind of comes out and works out pretty good. And so here's the lesson. And what I have my students do is I have them take out a piece of paper. They turn that piece of paper in at the end of the day, and they write down questions and answers. And then they just do that. If they're following along, that's their notes for the day. Plus, this is really good when they write down questions and answers. Anybody that's absent, they'll write down the questions and answers. Mr. Cap, what did I miss in lesson 1? You missed down the questions and answers. Write those down, turn it in. I'll give you the same grade that I gave the other classmates that were here. Sometimes I'll give them their notes back for the 3 or the 6 week exam so they can kind of use that. All my tests and quizzes are open Bible, open notes, that kind of a thing, because I want them to get the right answer. I want them to search out the truth. I don't want them guessing. And so I usually make it pretty easy. Most of my students do very well in this class and achieve a pretty good grade. So anyway, I'll have them write down the questions in maybe one color of ink, the answers in another color, skip lines so I can read it. And so they'll do that. And so I might just introduce this Bible Truths first lesson by reading Ephesians chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, verse 10, that kind of a thing. And I'll read that. We'll discuss it just a little bit. And maybe I'll ask a question or two. And again, anytime they see a red question, they'll write it down. Here's the answer right here. The main thing that we're doing is we're trying to teach them the truth in Bible Truths, and we're trying to get them to discuss faith. So let's take a look at that. I've done that. We might look at some of these kinds of things. In my webpage, if I mouse over a scripture, it actually gives me the scripture, so I don't have to have it typed out. You could have a student read some of these scriptures. Okay, what do you think workmanship means? That kind of a thing. You could have that. Okay, and then I go through the questions that I think are important. And I've done that through the curriculum. I also might have a little video in here that we'll watch. We'll watch 1 minute, 40 seconds of this first video. And then if you'll see down here, here's another part where we'll watch a little bit more of the same video. And so I try to divide up the class by not just straight lecture. I try to divide it up with some discussion, with writing down questions and answers, with the video, and that kind of a thing. I try to put pictures on there so that students can do that, and we have some pretty good discussion. I have this lesson here, I have, I think, 10 questions. Usually there's only 5 or 6 questions that I have. So it's that lecture time is really kind of short, and then it's opened up to more group work, more discussion, watch a short little video, and then we'll do that. Let me quickly go to day 3 now of my lesson plan space, because day 3 is just a little bit different than that. So let me go back now. Again, I'm back in RenWeb. I'm in the lesson plans page. I'm just going to go forward. Here's day 3. So now we've already had a chapel. And so in day 3, we've had a chapel. It's the next day, or, I teach Bible 3rd hour, so we'd have chapel before it, so that we come right to Bible class. So since it's fresh in their mind, let's go ahead and go over it. And so I'll take about 20 minutes or so. We'll circle up in a group, and they write down their notes on a chapel notes page. So here's my chapel notes, and this is what it looks like. Again, you can harvest this. I've got the link in the email that I sent you, and so you can see that. And then we'll go over the notes. Each person has to share something. I give them a grade for their notes. I give them a grade for sharing. So, okay, and then another thing that I do in my class is I have my students get up and give a devotion. They only have to do 1 devotion per quarter, but it's kind of rigorous in how I want it done. So here is what I call Testimony Tuesday. When we had classes 5 days a week, we did their devotions on Tuesdays, and I call them, let's give your testimony, that kind of a thing. So I just nicknamed it Testimony Tuesday. You can call it Bible devotion. You can call it kind of whatever you want to there. I made up a worksheet rubric on what I expect. So here's that. In paragraph 1, they're going to write 5 paragraphs in their devotion. And in paragraph 1, they're going to tell me why they've chosen and what they're going to talk about. In paragraph 1, they're going to talk about what their devotion is today. It comes from what scripture verses. They're going to explain the meaning of those verses in these lines. Here, they're also going to give what I call companion verses in their Bible Devo, something from the Old Testament, something from the New Testament. In the testimony time paragraph, they're going to give an example of how someone, either themselves or their parents or their brother or their sister, fought through, was wise, they sought God, God answered, God blessed them. They're going to give that devotion, and then they're going to apply it to their classmates in the final paragraph. Usually the devotion doesn't take much more than 3 minutes, 5 minutes to present. It shouldn't take any more than that. I always leave it open for questions and answers from myself or the students afterward, and that's actually what we call a student-led Bible devotion. I make that a major grade. It's one of my major grades throughout the quarter, along with my 3, 6, and 9-week exams, and so we do that. So here, that's day 3. Let me show you just a little bit of the Bob Jones curriculum. Here is the Bible Truths. You can see it says right here, Level E. And this is a discussion of the New Testament. So here's their workbook. And what they'll do is this workbook has got some areas to read, a scripture verse to memorize, Bible expressions to understand, words to learn, places on the map to go to, and then some other things. Like this is lesson 10, and where they talk about a great hero of faith. And this one here happened to be Jonathan Edwards, about how he overcame or how he used the Word of God to fight his battles and that kind of a thing. So that is the workbook you'll be using. And the workbook also has questions at the back. Dr. Royal wants us to have them write the answers to the questions on a separate piece of paper so that we can use these workbooks from year to year. I did that last year. It worked out really great. Didn't mess up. Students didn't fold them up, bend them up, that kind of a thing. Another thing that Bob Jones has is a teacher edition. This is actually the teacher edition right here. And this is where I got all of the lessons that I have. The 58 lessons are in here and that kind of a thing, and explains how to do it. It's a pretty good guide for you. So you've got a teacher edition. It's in a little spiral bound book. And so you'll see that. Here's some of the things that we can have. Here's some of the pages. Here's kind of what a typical lesson looks like. Here's the very first lesson, Saved by Faith. We're in the book of Ephesians, and it has different things. And what I did for my questions that I showed you is I just took like each one here and made it a question, and I read through it. And so this is a pretty good guide for you to use in the teacher edition of the workbook, and it helps you teach the lessons. Other things that Bob Jones has, they've got some tests. I didn't use any of these tests. All of my tests were essay tests. The 3, 6, and 9-week exam were essay tests that I had the student write essays, and I tested them that way. So I did daily grades, writing down notes in class, questions and answers, tests, and that kind of a thing. Anytime that we might have, go to Schoology and do a little quiz, that kind of a thing, I graded those. Those were all minor grades. But you can use these tests if you'd like to. They're actually pretty good. You kind of, when you start using these tests, you have to teach the test. Do not test them on something you haven't covered. Another thing that Bob Jones has is a CD-ROM. And I actually have that ROM. I think it's in a sleeve inside your teacher edition. But the ROM actually has additional workbook exercises for each lesson of the 58 lessons. Just a page and a half, maybe 10, 15 questions. But you could print those and put those in there. You'll find that on the CD-ROM. So that was a pretty good tool that some of the teachers used in Bible 11. So that's how I teach Bible 11. I've divided up the days into A day, B day. Each day is a different lesson. And I put this in here so that I can make notes too. You can see this column right here on the right is actually where I make my notes, change things up, and that kind of a thing. I've left them blank right now because I'm going to change things up. Here's another thing that I do in some of my classes. I go to Charisma News. This is what I call a Chromebook-led Bible 11 current events, where students would go to Charisma News, which is it's kind of a spiritual news and has articles from Charisma Magazine and other things, Spirit-Led Woman, Ministry Today, those kinds of things. Has different podcasts where students can go and they can find these articles. And in these articles, the students can do a quick little lesson about how this person overcame and that kind of a thing. And so when you're teaching about Revelation and you've got an article in Charisma News about the end times, there's zero Bible evidence for a 7-year tribulation. This person here's given that. We actually go over that in the book of Revelation. Here's my rubric for how I kind of grade, that kind of a thing. They're going to find an article that sparks their interest, or I might assign an article. I might assign all the boys in row 1 to go to the U.S. tab. I might decide all the boys in row 2 to go to the political tab, and the girls go to the world tab, and I'll show you these real quick. Here's the U.S. tab right here. Here's the world tab, political tab, video, culture, marketplace. Lots of articles in each one of these. Articles in the past that they could look up and that kind of thing. And you can pick and choose. You could get an article, you go to find this article and do that one. And students do that. And then students would turn in that piece of paper. I give them instructions on what to do. And that's actually pretty good for the class, a good way for the students to use their Chromebooks and that kind of thing in class so that they can do that. Sometimes I'll have them divide up into groups and use their Chromebooks. Everybody pick a different article. Nobody can pick the same article. And then I grade them that way. And so that's a pretty good thing that I do. Let's see. Let me just go back to day 3, see if there's anything that I missed in a day 3. I talked to you about Testimony Tuesday. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to interview a staff member, Pastor Paul, Mr. Cherry, other fellow teachers, that kind of a thing. And they're going to come and give their little testimony. I might have the students interview the faculty member or the teacher or special guest speaker. It might be a parent that's a pastor, that kind of thing. They'll come to my class and we'll do a little interview. I call it the CAP interview. And we'll interview different people. I try to do that every third lesson, every third day. So we'll do something a little bit different. And that's how I teach Bible truths. Here's my first quarter. You can kind of look at the lesson plans and that kind of a thing. Here I teach them, and if you click on this link, this is how I teach them how to write an essay. If you have any questions about how to do these things, just feel free to stop by my room, 2121. Here's also a tutorial on how to harvest a YouTube video. Hope you have a great year. Stop by my room anytime. Thanks.